It's 37 days to the presidential and parliamentary elections. Hello and welcome to Joy News Prime with me, Samuel Kojo Brace. We're live on DSTV channel 421, GoTV channel 125, all social media handles without approval from the Public Procurement Authority.
As I said, I've always tolerated the Speaker of Parliament and his representation, even though I know it's not lawful. And of course, it is not. You see, and the point must be made. It is not an attempt to prevent the Speaker from having representation.
Also, Chief Justice warns political parties and stakeholders to take procedure seriously or risk having their cases, including election petitions, thrown out as she launches the 5th manual for election petition adjudication.
Not only is procedure critical, but a failure to provide the legal threshold of evidence can be costly. Starting an action in the wrong court can lead to loss of an otherwise perfect case.
We have details, as she says, as judges, they cannot make all parties to a case happy.
Every day, I say every day, a judge annoys somebody. In fact, even if you adjourn a case, you will annoy somebody. If you grant an application, the one who was it was granted against will be upset.
At 8 p.m., Pius Kojobaka will be here with Prime Business.
Energy strategist Dr. Yusuf Suleimana calls on government to urgently renegotiate the restructuring terms with the independent power producer Sanon Asogli Power over the debt owed them.
Is that they should go forward, renegotiate, and make sure that Asogli come on board as soon as possible, because that's the panacea, at least, to have a stable power supply.
And later at 8:30, Razak Musbah will bring you Prime Sports.
Well, Wibini goes star downplays Premier League title hopes despite topping the table, insisting they want their fans to be measured the expectations of them.
For me, I don't have to put pressure on myself at this time. It's too early to be thinking about that. No, I don't want to put pressure on myself.
Remember, we are a home of independent, fearless, and credible journalism. Thanks for choosing us. Please stay. Let's now take you back to the engineering house here in Accra, where the Ethics and Leadership Lecture Series is happening on the theme Redesigning Africa's Transformation Polygon. Let's take you back there now.
At the same time, about the same time, Israel created Tahal, and they are both government consulting entities. Tahal has had the occasion to consult across the world, including consulting on several projects in Ghana, moved their HQ to Amsterdam, and is now recognized as a global company with branches in several countries, including India. I don't know how many employees AESL has. If there's an AESL person here, it became AESC. Now, the strange thing is that somewhere along the line, we were convinced to privatize these corporations and call them limited liability companies, with the view that once they became limited liability companies, they could be divested, or even if not divested, they will operate as companies. But we've never allowed them to operate as companies. We have interfered so much just because they are government, and we have made political appointments of persons who have no idea whatsoever how to manage companies. I have been quoted several times, and I will repeat that here. I don't belong to the school which says government has no business doing business. I believe government has business doing business. But governments must do business as business. Ethiopian Airlines is a government company, and it's one of the most profitable airlines in the world. The airline has the minimum margin you can get in any industry. If an airline like that can be profitable, if Tahal can be profitable, what about the AESL? It is because we appoint persons who are clueless to these organizations and expect them to perform. And those are the things that we need to change. The strange thing is that many of these organizations that we have even passed on to the private sector have also died in private sector hands. I once had the occasion to tweet that where businesses die in public and private sector hands, the elite must begin to examine their mindset. Now, This is not to indict any of the companies here. But Comtran Engineering, which is one of the biggest engineering firms I know in this country, by my check, was formed, I think, in 1989. It's the same time Mott MacDonald was also formed. The last time I checked, Mott MacDonald employs 18,000 people in 150 countries. The rest, as we say, is history. ABP is one of the oldest companies. According to their own website, ABP was set up in 1962, and Aecon, where Mr. President comes from, was set up in 1961. I just checked from your own website, so that's where my source is coming from. But both of them, much as they have grown and have survived, have still not matched the likes of SNC-Lavalin or Routing and other companies which were set up subsequently. And these are engineering companies. But this is not limited. I tried to get the logo for Chumbuafu and Partners and Contera. These are all engineering companies I have had to deal with in one way or the other over the period. And I'm concerned about the growth, not only of engineering companies, but of professional services in general. It is on the back of professional services that businesses grow. And if in an era of AFCFTA, we cannot grow our professional services, we have a problem. And the inability to grow is based on a number of things, including culture and our ability inability to merge, to partner, etc. This is not a lecture on mergers and how to expand. But I want to draw the attention that at times, because we are small, it's easier for us to be bullied by politicians and to be forced to do unethical things. And I will encourage all professional services to grow as much as possible. I'm a strategist, and I believe strategy depends on context. And strategy is important, but it depends on the rank of the ladder that you occupy. So it is important that we take strategic moves and grow as much as we can in the context. I saw this today, and it was quite illustrative. This is isotopes. And according to the gentleman from Nigeria, two elements having the same atomic number. One is naira, one is dollar, but they have different mass. Now I understand this thing where they teach me for chemistry class. Chemistry, well understood now. So strategy is like everything. It depends on the context. The atomic number is not necessarily the same. And that is why I have had several occasions to criticize the use of certain policies, which in my view are not actually letting the growth of the economy, but are leading to the things that, because we assume that just because it is taught in Harvard or practiced in America means that it will work here. I want to avoid going into those controversial things for today. Mr. Chairman, let me go to lessons that we have never learned. And by that, I recommend that these are lessons we should learn. The first one is that we seem to forget the nature of power. Power, they say, corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. That is well known. But we seem to forget as a nation that power is transient. And it doesn't matter how much we exercise it, it will end one day. One of the observations I have made, and I have tweeted about this before, that many politicians in Ghana and in Africa have a 3-point criteria for making decisions, especially when it comes to engineering projects. The first decision is whether I will find money in my pocket or that of my relatives. That's criteria number one. It doesn't appear so, but it is so, and it's very subtle. Criteria number two is whether it will give me advantage over my political opponent. Now, criteria number two is what is presented to the party apparatchiks. Because criteria number two enables serial callers and party supporters to quickly jump in support of the project, which was initiated in the first place because of criteria number one. Criteria number three is very interesting. It simply says, if criteria number 2 is not present, don't move ahead. Now, number 3 works because as soon as you get criteria number 2, which is a political advantage, then party apparatchiks can present it as giving a national advantage. Then you can move ahead. So you will see that many projects which are presented as giving a national advantage actually arrived there because of criteria number 2 by the party apparatchiks, and originally by criteria number 1 by the person who decides whether the project should go on or not. That's the 3-point criteria I've developed in guiding me in thinking about every project which is initiated. I'm not saying they are all the same, but I think this is a yardstick that may help us determine the extent to which ethics play if we have to be examining or taking lessons from what has happened. Lesson number 2. We tend to forget that politicians forget how to count. Now, if there is one thing politicians don't know at all, it is counting. Yes, they forget that because much as they see the whole, they forget that the whole consists of the parts, and that it is important to see both the whole and the parts. Without seeing the parts, you may not understand the whole. They tend to think of 4 years and forget that 4 years is 48 months. So you will see that after the first 6 months, they said we just came to power. After another 6 months, we just came to power. And they keep enjoying until the last year, then they rush to commission projects. If you watch from 1992, this is how we have examined, we have done projects in this country. One of them was so bad that in a project I was involved, which I cannot name, we went to the site and the leader was put on an excavator with a picture and dug the soil, and that was the last time anything was dug. To this day. Because the desire to commission and to cut salt comes at the last minute. Because they don't understand that 4 years is 48 months, they forget that engineering projects must first be conceptualized. It must have a preliminary design. It must have a detailed design. The design must be reviewed. Finance experts must cost it. The cost must be modeled. It must be budgeted for if it is GOG money. Even if it is foreign money, it must also be budgeted for. It must be presented to Parliament. And Parliament must approve it. It must be disbursed. And for many of the funding agencies, disbursement is only in specific tranches. And they may not do disbursement more than 3 times in a year. So they forget that unless you started a project at the time you are enjoying in the first 6 months, you are not likely to complete it. I had occasion to develop the project delivery time on a project which the person I was advising was to deliver it to the president. And the person looked at me and asked, are you saying that this project will be commissioned by the next president? Because this president's time was coming to an end. And I said, yes. And he said, and you expect me to go and present that to the president? Give me another program which lets it be commissioned within his period. That was what was presented. Even though we all as technocrats knew that that is not what was going to happen. Lesson number 3. Not everyone who is following us is traveling in our direction. And I tweet a lot, and I will just recall my tweet of 18th April 2023. And it explains everything. Not everyone praising the leader is a supporter. The crowd includes those who follow him just for daily bread, those with an agenda to enrich themselves, those waiting for a chance to replace him, and may even include his enemies waiting for an opportunity to put him into a ditch. Yep. Lesson number 4. We appear to have evolved a new culture of if you can't beat them, join them. And many professionals are rushing into politics because to them, man must live. It used to be the name of a police officer when I was in Takrady, and we called him Mamoye. And in the desire to go into politics, it is for sacrificing people in order to make profits. I have said, and I would like to repeat it here, that the best thing a professional who requires transformation can do for the country is not to join politics. I'm not sure if Mr. Chairman would agree with me, but that has been my position for a very long time. And the reason I say that is that I've seen many, many, many good people who have gone into politics. And by my own judgment, one happens to be my chair for the day. My view is that it doesn't matter how well-intentioned you are, you will be overwhelmed by those with ill intention. And that the best thing to do is like what you can do for the poor, not to be part of them. But to be outside and continue contributing in a very dispassionate and nonpartisan manner as much as possible, because they're here. And I can give you a list of suggestions I have made, which have been heard, some of which implemented. Like the example of the Ministry of Business Development, it was my suggestion. That was a public suggestion I made, and wrote a paper about it. I can go on, but how they deal with it is also because many of us are not talking enough. Lesson number 5. Unethical behavior slows our progress. Now, you can see a formula on the board. I presented this formula, and this is a lawyer creating a formula for our transformation and accelerated growth. I presented this formula on January 7th, 2023, when I had the privilege of being the lecturer or the speaker on the Constitution Day hosted by the One Ghana movement. And I spoke on the topic that relates to the Constitution as an economic document. Yes, I'm a lawyer, but anytime I look at the Constitution, I see more economics. And I've always argued that I'm not one of those people who believe in amending the Constitution. Amendments and frequent amendments and passing of laws is an excuse we give for our non-performance. If you cast your mind around this country, you will see entities which were committees, which fought to be commissions, and change from commissions to authority. They go on and on, all trying the moment you call them authority, and the more they become authority, the less they perform. There are many of them. You don't need to change a law in order to perform. And I will repeat a statement I keep making. No law is so good as to prevent an evil-minded person from doing bad. If he is evil-minded, he will go around the law. And no law is so bad as to prevent a person who intends to do good from doing good. If the law is bad, he will not obey it. He will simply not allow the law to push him to do bad. So we don't need to amend the law in order to do good. It is when we do the good that the law amendment becomes necessary. So on that Constitutional Day, I made this formula proposal that the speed of prosperity, which is SP, is arrived at when contemporary events, which is CE, and leadership choices, which is what the ethics and leadership lecture is about. So contemporary events and leadership choices added to citizens' response, which is why I call for us to continue talking. If we put that together, and the denominator is the ecosystem, we will speed up our progress. And it is important that we are guided by a formula like this. Lesson number 6. Mindset and attitudes will let us accelerate and attain our transformation faster. And transformation, in my view, Mr. Chairman, is both art and science. And I will talk about the science part of transformation shortly before I conclude. But the art part relates to mindset, action, and behavior that leads to success. Having said that, I recently gave a lecture on the stupidity index and how the elite get entrapped in ignorance. Now, in my stupidity index, I define stupidity as doing something continuously that you know that harms you. Now, it is clear that at one point in time, we all become stupid in one way or the other. I have been stupid on several occasions. So I am not insulting anybody. But to check whether what I'm doing is stupid or not, I have a personal index I'm guided by, and I want to share it with you. And I think that that index affects the elite much more than they assume. The first criteria is to determine whether something is important to you. If transformation is important to us, then that is our first criteria. The second thing is to determine how much resources you spend on that which is important to you. Are we spending a lot of resources on discussing transformation and developing strategies for transformation? Just turn on the radio. Politics, politics, politics. Between 1993 and now, the only part of our constitution which have grown very, very much, except perhaps free SHS, that we have really implemented are the political ones, from opaque ballot boxes to transparent ballot boxes to going to court. The politicians can go to every corner of this country to have 18 million people vote, yet only 4 million of our people have bank accounts. I just cannot understand a country where 4 million people have bank accounts and we can get 18 million people to vote. The resources is spent more about politics than about anything. So if transformation is important to us, we should be spending our time and our money on it. Once we are not, then we are actually doing that, which has a very high score on my index. The last part of the index is whether you repeat that which you know harms you. And clearly we do. I will not do a poll and ask you to score. I will leave the score to your own minds as to how much we score as a people on that index. Lesson number 7, the future can be engineered. And indeed, it must be engineered. Opportunity is often said that it comes and you take advantage, but you can create it. If you strategize, the AU has stopped at 2063. We don't have to wait for 2063. We can engineer our own transformation. It requires finance. It requires law to keep it orderly. And the convergence of all is necessary for it to be realized. And I recognize, Mr. Chairman, that various sectors, including housing, health, and politics itself, are part of the diverse polygons that must come together. But all these, as I've indicated, rest on the core 3, which I said must converge. And it's important that we get ourselves to execute this engineered development in a way that it creates value for us in diverse ways. And I would like to emphasize that I'm not asking for us to do that which we don't have. I want us to add value to that which we already have by thinking of it in engineering terms and in innovative ways. And I'm going to say something which may sound funny, but which to me is true. Starbucks is a $1 billion company because all that it took was for somebody to decide that Americans love coffee and that they must pay more for coffee and scale it and open branches. Ghanaians love fufu, but there's no fufu value chain. Why not? Why can't fufu be studied in school? Why is fufu not a subject? Why is fufu not a science? The movement of the pestle and the mortar goes according to a specific velocity, which we need to calculate. Instead of asking students to calculate the speed of a car that they may not have seen, they should be calculating if the pestle was moving at a certain velocity. What is the calculation about the movement of hands to ensure that it does not hit the hand which is turning the fufu? It is when we do this that the plastic companies should begin to think about how we create a fufu value chain by creating plastic containers which do not spill the soup. And therefore, fufu becomes fast food in urban areas. And you can deliver fufu without the soup getting warm or without it spilling. Plastic containers or other containers and warmers will begin to be developed. Indeed, we should begin to calculate.
Leadership lecture series live from the Engineering Center here in Accra. We'll take a break here for short commercials. We'll be back with more stories, so do stay with us here. Don't go away. Welcome back from the break. Now, the Attorney General and the Minister for Justice, Godfred Yeboah-Dame, says the Speaker of Parliament has illegally procured the services of Thaddeus Sory as a lawyer for Parliament. This became an issue in court yesterday when the Supreme Court sat on a case challenging the ruling by the Speaker of Parliament, Alban Bagbin, involving the declaration of 4 seats in the House as vacant. We'll hear more on the shortly, but first listen to the AG, Godfred Yeboah-Dame, challenging the inclusion of the Speaker to the suit being heard.
I think it was a matter that was properly brought up, yes, because as I indicated to the court, the procurement of all goods, works and services of any person with public funds must be with the approval of the procurement authority. So it's a matter that is very important, and indeed, yes, we raise it.
In the Namagacha case, the court stated that when it comes to issues where Parliament and the AG's office has cross purposes, they can hire different lawyers.
Constitutional case, there's nothing like a person have an interest in it. What interest does the Speaker of Parliament have in the interpretation of the Constitution? So there's no interest, no personal interest of the Speaker of Parliament. And that's the point I sought to make. That indeed, when it comes to constitutional actions, the most important interest is the true and proper interpretation of the relevant provision of the Constitution. And that is it. So it's not as if a person has a personal interest in it. And if that's the case, as I indicated in some cases that I cited, it is actually a proper interpretation of the Constitution by the Supreme Court that is most important. I mean, as I said, I've always tolerated the Speaker of Parliament and his representation, even though I know it's not lawful. And of course, it is not. You see, and the point must be made. It is not an attempt to prevent the Speaker from having representation. If the Speaker wants to have a lawyer, the Speaker must procure the lawyer lawfully. And then, as I said, the Attorney General, even when he's seeking the service of a lawyer to represent the government in cases outside the country, in foreign court, goes through PPA approval all the time. Even the Chief Justice, the former Chief Justice, who was, with all respect, using the services of Thaddeus Sory, had to go through PPA approval. And I know for a fact that he has not received any PPA approval. And so he's in flagrant violation of the provisions of the law, and that is what we sought to do.
Then why did you leave? You did not raise it again. The Chief Justice came back and did not mention it again.
Well, that's up to the court. I did not quarrel with the court at all when the court decides to either defer a ruling or maybe decides not to rule on it. And of course, all rights are also reserved in us to take it up further. A breach of the PPA Act constitutes a crime. And my contention is that you cannot use a crime to defend a clear unconstitutional action by yours. So indeed, you are engaged in an unconstitutional action and you are using, with all respect, the commission of a crime to further that unconstitutionality.
Well, since this matter, came up, a letter has surfaced in the media from the PPA rejecting an application to single source Sory at law, the law firm of Thaddeus Sory, as a solicitor on retainer for Parliament. Let me share with you details of that particular letter. It says, we make reference to your letter number PS/PPA/SS/11/2022 and dated 15 November 2022. Now it says, at the 31st board meeting of the 5th board held on Thursday, 8th December 2022, the board could not approve your request to use the single source procurement method to engage Messrs. Sory at law as an external solicitor to support Parliament and the Parliamentary service at a retainer fee of 5,000 cedis and specific fee for the conduct of constitutional cases in the Supreme Court at a fee not exceeding 300,000 cedis. So this is what is contained in the letter. It continues to say that the board noted that since the Attorney General is the principal legal advisor, the board is of the considered opinion that parliamentary service should continue to use the services of the AG in all legal matters. We count on your usual cooperation. So this is what the PPA sent to the parliamentary board when this request was placed in 2022, requesting to single source Sory at law. Now, this matter became a subject of contention in the Supreme Court when this matter that is challenging the ruling of the Supreme Court in the matter involving the Speaker declaring some 4 seats in the House as vacant. Now, a former Auditor General, Daniel Yao Demlevo, has lashed out at the Clerk of Parliament for allegedly stalling the prosecution of officials flagged by the Public Accounts Committee for mismanaging public funds. Earlier, the Public Accounts Committee Chairman James Kluche Aveji accused the Clerk of obstructing the committee's work by not acting on recommendations for prosecuting individuals involved in embezzlement, causing some members to consider resigning. Meanwhile, Joy News has learned that the clerk also delayed for over 2 years in referring a case to the Attorney General involving former Ghana cylinder manufacturing CEO Frances Esiam in a $17 million steal. Now, reacting to this development, anti-corruption advocate Yao Demlevo described the actions of the clerk as unacceptable. We'll hear from him shortly. First, here is PAC Chairman Aveji.
We started making recommendations, strong recommendations, for prosecution of individuals and institutions who actually went against the procurement law. And I've always cited Ghana Cylinder Manufacturing Company, right? Frances Esiam, yes, where unilaterally she went and awarded a contract over $26 million without going through the procurement process, which is against the law. We have made this recommendation for her to be prosecuted. Yet the Attorney General did not take any action. When I queried him, why are you not prosecuting the people we have recommended? The Attorney General said that we have not been communicated to by Parliament. And that's the responsibility of the clerk. That's the responsibility of the clerk. The letter was drafted. It was sent to the deputy clerk, who vetted it and forwarded it to the clerk. It took more than 2 years for the clerk to endorse a pen signature. The Clerk of Parliament? Yes, I'm telling you. I have to make series of complaints on the floor of Parliament. But Honorable, what bureaucratic tendencies will get a clerk to sit on a document as important as, ensuring accountability, that it will take the clerk 2 years to forward that referral to the Attorney General's office? So that's the challenge I have. In fact, it makes my committee push her to the extent that there is no more interest even doing the work. For members? For members. Because it's like... you have work... And then nothing comes out of it. Nothing will come out of it. Yes. I want to ask, I'll come back to that. I want to ask, so since the inception of constitutional rule from 1992 up until now, and since the work of the Public Accounts Committee started, has there ever been any prosecution at all based on a recommendation of the not to the best of my knowledge.
Well, former Auditor General Daniel Yao Demlevo says the action of the clerk is unacceptable and that the public must continue to hold such public officials accountable for the use of public funds.
On earth can Parliament come to a decision, or a committee of Parliament come to a decision, and between Parliament and Attorney General, it will take us all this period. I don't think it should take us a week to even get that done. So I think that is unacceptable.
Away from that, Chief Justice Getri Tokono is warning political parties and other stakeholders to take their procedure seriously or risk having their cases thrown out. Speaking at the launch of the latest manual on adjudicating elections, the Chief Justice insisted that procedure is so fundamental and goes to the heart of every dispute before a court. The Chief Justice therefore cautioned potential litigants to pay particular attention to procedure when going to court.
Not only is procedure critical, but a failure to provide the legal threshold of evidence can be costly. Starting an action in the wrong court can lead to loss of an otherwise perfect case. This is why I crave and ask that strong attention should be paid to the teachings and the learnings in the material that has been freely given in this manual. It should be extremely helpful to especially the media, who need to correctly inform the public on ongoing disputes. This year's edition, which is divided into 3 volumes, as already stated, as the most significant change for ease of reference, is a credit to its drafters. In these 3 volumes, they have done a thorough job of reflecting the changing course of election law while remaining true to the overarching principles that have guided previous editions.
The Chief Justice has meanwhile been wading into the backlash judges face after rulings. According to Gertrude Tokonu, judges cannot make all parties happy. She also expressed optimism that Ghana will remain peaceful after the crucial 2024 election.
I say every day, a judge annoys somebody. In fact, even if you adjourn a case, you will annoy somebody. If you grant an application, the one who was it was granted against will be upset. And so we live with upset. But it is really beautiful to see how we have gathered as a group around our nation. We have nowhere to go. This is the piece of earth that God gave us. And He gave it to a diverse group. And as diverse as we are, our ethnic groups, our various groups, we are one people, one nation, and we have one destiny. We will go through the elections. We will come out, and the nation will be the strongest for it.
Now, questions are emerging over how the 2 major political parties will raise huge funds to implement their flagship health policies in their manifesto. Now, the Center for Democratic Development Fellow for Public Health, Kwame Sapon-Asiedu, revealed that it will cost the NDC a whopping $18.5 billion to implement its 111 programs, while it will cost the NPP $13.9 billion to implement its 84 programs. In Joy News Manifesto Tracker on PM Express, Mr. Sapon-Asiedu raised concerns over how the parties were going to raise these funds amidst a tight fiscal space when they win the elections.
If you divide it, it's about $4.5 billion a year. And you have to factor it in that a chunk is the earlier calculation I made of the free primary health care because of the $50 average with 34 million people. So that is there. Even if in our calculation, what we did was we assumed that, let's say that they are going to even, only 50% of Ghanaians are going to access that. So the 1.7 billion just comes to about $850 million. But that is still a lot of money a year to find. Yeah. Factoring in the fact that we need to find $3 billion and we are struggling and going cap in hand to the World Bank. So for me, they have to tell me. And one thing about numbers is when you tell them every time, what the political parties would do is to try and muddy the waters by saying, how did you come to this? I'm not going to play that game with them. What they should tell us, how much is it going to cost? If they say that is wrong, let's assume they came and said all this is wrong.
They should tell us.
They should tell us how much.
Because you put it up. You tell us how much it's going to cost.
Yes, and if they want to see the numbers and what has gone into the modeling to get to this, I'm prepared to share. But most importantly, they should tell us how it costs. The NPPs would cost
13.9. Yeah. They are more realistic in what they are promising. You saw in the numbers there.
Even then, it's about 3.9 billion per year. They can't find 3 billion. Yeah. But then they are telling me that they will find 3.9 billion every year over 4 years. When they can't find, when they can't find 3 billion for
3 years,
for 1 year from the IMF.
IMF, yes.
Just to get.
I mean, the point support. You're making, we've gone to the IMF, wanting 3 billion
for the whole country,
over a 3-year period,
which is 1 billion a year.
And now you say you're going to be spending 3 billion every year for 4
years. So what I get is, as happens with a lot of our manifestos, it's a wish list. They would implement some of them irrespective of who wins power. But 4 years from now, we probably would be looking at the things they promised us that they never implemented. And that, for me, is what we are trying to prevent today.
But the two major political parties are questioning the basis of the data, asserting strongly that there are funds to implement them. Now take a listen to Presidential Advisor on Health, Dr. Sory, and the NDC parliamentary candidate for the Lambusie constituency, Professor Thaddeus.
What is the basis of his calculation?
You dispute it?
Yes, when he came to us.
You dispute it?
I asked him a very simple question.
Okay, so if you dispute
what is the basis of your calculation?
He actually explained it. He explained it in this when he said, well, you dispute it?
No, how do you, I don't see where he got his figures.
Okay.
Because you see, you have to get the basis.
What is yours? What is your figure? How much is it going to cost you?
Before you can then say what he said.
Okay, you did the manifesto. How much is it going to cost you to implement
You know how much it costs. We know how much it costs.
So tell us.
The source of money for Agenda 1.
I haven't asked the source yet. I'm asking about how much.
Agenda 111.
Not Agenda 111. I'm talking about all your promises.
All the things that you are doing. If you read our manifesto very well, I can see that you've left a lot of portions out. If you look at it, it will tell you how we are going to do these things.
I have costs per each of the major significant things that we wish to do.
And the total is what?
No, I'm not going to be able to give you a round total.
So you also haven't cost?
No, I'm just telling you. I mean, why do you jump to that conclusion? I said I have costs.
Simple.
So if you allow me, I'll tell you. So for instance, if you take our free primary healthcare policy, we estimate per annum is going to cost us about $49 million. Right? And we've costed this because we've done estimation for the number, because we are doing it in phases. We've costed that if we have about 6,000 chips compound operating. Right now we're around 4,000. If we complete what we wish to complete and have all the chips compound running, we'll have roughly about 6,000. We've costed that, how much expenditure it costs per chips compound per year. And so if we are freeing funds for them and they are going to get, it's going to cost about $49 million.
$49 million?
Per annum.
Per annum for the free primary healthcare?
Yes.
Now, the Attorney General has been given 7 more days to file his statement of case in a matter of some cases filed challenging the constitutionality of the Anti-LGBTQ plus bill. Now, the AG made an application in court asking for more time to file the relevant document. It comes on the heels of lawyers splitting hair over the submission of a fiscal impact analysis in court. Member of our Legal Affairs Desk, Kwekwa Sante, reports.
The 2 cases filed by Richard Elaskai and Dr. Amanda Odoi challenging the constitutionality of the anti-LGBTQ bill came up again at the Supreme Court for hearing, this time by a single judge to hear some interlocutory matters. The Attorney General's Department filed an application asking for more time to file a statement of case.
Yes, my Lord, we have before you an application for extension of time to file a statement of case out of time. And as my Lord will see from our affidavit, we did not delay out of disrespect for this court, but for the fact that we were waiting for certain documents from them, which we stated in our paragraph 6.
The lawyers on the other side were not opposed to it, and a single justice, Justice Yaudakwa Sory, granted this application.
So I'm satisfied that the application has merits, and I'm inclined to grant it, especially in the absence of any affidavit in opposition filed by either the plaintiff or the first defendant. Accordingly, it is hereby ordered that time for the second defendant to file a statement of case is extended for 7 days from the date of this order. So that's my order.
But there is also this crucial matter of the financial impact analysis that was supposed to be attached to this bill. Early on in early proceedings, the lawyers for the Speaker of Parliament had said they were going to make those documents available to the court. Lawyer for Richard Elaskai, Pakwesi Abedu, asked the lawyers for the Speaker of Parliament why they had not made that document available to the court. The Attorney General's Department also cited that as part of the reason why they had not filed their statement of case. Then the single justice presiding over this case, Justice Yaudakwa Sory, then indicated that if they were so much pressed about this document and they believed it will make their case for them, they surely do know what court processes they would have to use to compel the Speaker of Parliament to file that.
My Lord, our hesitation to file memorandum of issues for all this time has been due to the absence
Why
of...
do you need a court order to file memorandum of issues?
Yes.
If they serve you with their statement if she says the statement of case?
Lord,
and all the processes are in order. What prevents you from this process? Because you are the plaintiff. And I think the best thing is that you file a joint memorandum of issue.
I'm prepared to file. In fact, it has been ready, sitting on the table. Our only setback is that there's one crucial document they promised to file. And up to this stage, we don't see that document among the lot. That's the financial impact analysis.
Mr. Abidu.
Yes, my lord.
If you are contesting a matter with somebody, and he's relying on a document, and he says he will make that document available to the court, and he's not bringing it, how is it not to your benefit?
Very well. Lord, I'll rest my case here.
Why do you push him to bring the tools that, or the armory that he will use to destroy you?
Lord.
If I were you, I'll just
rest my case here. I'll rest it here.
Lord, just 1 second. My lord, we don't want to give a name to the documents because we said it's good. He said he had cited.
If you think it's there, you know the process to file to compel them to produce it.
Yes. So my lord, we know what to do. So we are not deliberating.
If you think that it will inure to your benefit, and they are, as it were, suppressing it.
My lord,
and you know that it is there. Compel them to produce it.
The Attorney General now has 7 days to file their statement of case, and then the memorandum of issues will then be filed. The case will now be set down for hearing, and then ultimately the court will set a date to make a declaration as to whether or not this bill that was passed in Parliament is actually constitutional or not. Reporting for Joy News, Kweku Asante, Supreme Court, Accra.
From that, the Afrobarometer's latest survey reveals that 82% of Ghanaians believe the country is headed in the wrong direction, highlighting growing dissatisfaction with the current state of affairs. The survey points to significant concerns over the declining standard of living, as many respondents cite increasing cost of living, high inflation, and unemployment as key challenges. The following report has more.
This Afrobarometer survey on citizens' view on most important problems and economic conditions has revealed that 82% of Ghanaians believe the country is heading towards the wrong direction. The survey also indicated that 59% of the population say their personal living conditions have gotten worse today than they were a year ago. Dr. Edem Selom is the Director of Research at CDD Ghana.
When we ask people to tell us whether the country is going the wrong or right direction, we don't mean it either in political terms or economic terms. We leave that for our respondents to judge, to use their own, judgment to tell us. So that's what we get. So I think that it's a totality of things. It could include economic issues, political issues, and if we tie that into the findings we have about people's personal living conditions, people's assessment of the economic conditions, then that tells you when they say that the country is going in a particular direction, is tilted in the economic conditions.
On the payment of bribes, 52% of Ghanaians admitted to paying bribe to obtain police assistance, while 38% paid bribe to avoid problem with the police. A further 40% paid bribe to obtain identity documents, and 19% bribed their way to obtain medical care.
The number of Ghanaians that are saying that they pay a bribe to get out of trouble with the police has gone up significantly. And that is bad. Again, let's look at that in connection with how we perceive the police to be corrupt. It's a two-way stream, right? So whilst we are pointing fingers at the police as being corrupt, we also point fingers at ourselves too, because we are willing to, when it comes to us getting out of trouble, we are willing to pay a bribe to do that. Yes, paying bribes to get an identity document and paying bribes to get health services, for me, those two findings were very sobering. Because as I said in the presentation, some of the things that make us Ghanaians, apart from being born here, is to have a document that says, you are a Ghanaian citizen. Now, if you have to pay a bribe to get that, it means that you're literally bribing your way to become a citizen of this country.
But all was not gloomy in this survey, as more than 40% of Ghanaians say they expect economic conditions to get better within the next 12 months.
That's our package for you today. There's more news on myjoyonline.com. Coming up next, it's Prime Business. Thanks for your time. Good evening.